Ever wonder how not so sexy brands can thrive with influencer marketing? Tune in today to discover how to turn your influencer program into a customer acquisition powerhouse and crack the code to successful TikTok influencer partnerships. Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Jen Vazquez. I help hyper busy female service providers use Pinterest to book more clients and increase their income and impact. And on this podcast, I am fortunate enough to be grabbing all of the marketing experts that I know to come in and have conversations about how you can grow your business through different types of marketing. If marketing is something that you want to learn more about, I highly recommend that you subscribe to our podcast or our YouTube channel. Today, I am so excited to be chatting with Yuliya Gorenko at Mishka Agency. Yuliya is a marketing communications expert with 10 plus years of proven track record in public relations and influencer marketing. Yuliya's hands-on marketing experience extends from consumer goods and mobile apps to SaaS and enterprise software. She's worked with 30 plus brands globally, including L'Oreal, Garnier, Maybelline, New York, Hotspot, Shield VPN. You get the gist, a ton of companies. And she started an agency, a marketing communications boutique that helps brands deliver their vision to the world. She's facilitated thousands of brand influencer partnerships and built a scaled influencer program from 0 to 7-figure spend. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, what an intro. Thank you, Jen.
It's so wild to like hear our bio read back to
I
us.
know.
It's kind of weird, right? So I always love to ask this question. I love to know how people get to the business that they're working in today and all
Mhm.
sort of that windy road that led up to it. So tell us a little bit about the jobs that came before your business today.
Absolutely. Let me start with this. If somebody told me like 10 years ago that I would end up being an entrepreneur, I would laugh in their face. I would say no, no way. I would never, ever start my own business. I want to play it safe. I want to stick to my corporate job. I'm never quitting my corporate job. And, I'm not going anywhere. But yeah, life happens. So my story is that after, over, I would say like 6 or 7 years working for a variety of brands on the brand side, I decided that I want to try something new, and I started doing consultant work. So instead of working, like committing as an employee to one particular company, I started working with a variety of brands. It was not an agency back then. It was just me doing consultant work. And then at some point, after like a year or two, I realized that I won't get far if it's just me on my own. Like, I need to build a team. And then it kind of happened organically and naturally, I would say, just like as a response to the demand that I was seeing from my clients. Like, more and more brands reached out and kind of, wanted to work with me. So I'm like, okay, I need to hire somebody to help me. I need to delegate stuff. So yeah, at some point, I realized that it needs to grow into something bigger than just me. And that's how the whole agency thing happened. The agency, I think it like officially got launched about 4 years ago. Since then, we worked with a variety of clients, mostly direct to consumer brands. So we work with a lot of software products, consumer products as well. I have some experience working with B2B enterprise software solutions. So yeah, my experience is quite diverse. And yeah, that's where I'm right now.
Love it. Love it. So let's just dive right in because I know everyone wants to hear more about this. Can you
Mhm.
explain what influencer marketing is and why a business might consider using it to grow their business?
Yeah. Well, I think at this point, probably everybody, even if you're not in marketing, you probably heard the term influencer, or you might have heard the term creator economy. And a lot of people perceive it as something that is like relatively new, maybe something that started like 10 or 15 years ago. But my honest opinion is that influencer marketing has been as long as like the human civilization, has started. Because yeah, maybe we did not have social media or internet 100 years ago, but we still had influencers, we still had influential personalities, maybe at a smaller scale within, a certain community. So their reach and influence was limited to like their, geographical location and community they were part of. But the phenomenon of like being influential is definitely not new. It's a part of, being a human. It's a part of our society for, I think, thousands of years. And basically, like, the term influencer marketing has become very popular when, yeah, like probably when people tapped into the potential of the World Wide Web. And now, you can grow out of your small local community and get this global reach, right? Just by starting a YouTube channel, an Instagram channel, a TikTok channel, you can reach millions of people around the world, and your influence,
Rose. Yeah.
grows and reaches absolutely new levels. And this is when marketers started to capitalize on this trend, where they realized that nothing sells as well as the word of mouth. And
And someone
basically,
else other than you as the business owner.
yep. I love to say nobody likes to hear from the brand. Nobody wants your brand ad. People want to hear from people they can relate to. So word of mouth sells. And, the technology just gives us a way to kind of scale the word of mouth, right? Like to reach millions of people through those social platforms. So I would say influencer marketing in a nutshell is finding the right people to partner with. As a brand, you want to find experts, opinion leaders who are relevant in your particular niche. They do not necessarily have to have millions of followers. It might be somebody very small, but truly kind of respected in your niche, truly valued as an expert, as an opinion leader, as a trendsetter. And yeah, just like partner with this person and have them endorse your brand and promote your brand to their audience, to their community. This is influencer marketing in a nutshell.
Yes, yes. What are key steps, or what's the process, in your opinion, to turn an influencer program into a customer acquisition channel?
Yeah. Well, first, you know, I I've been in this space for so long, and I remember when influencer marketing was only kind of at its early stages. A lot of brands, especially like a lot of brand executives, perceived this tactic as a purely awareness tactic.
Yes.
So, oh, let's have
Visibility
this,
more
yeah,
than, yeah.
visibility, awareness. Like, let's create some hype. We partner with this influencer. They post about it. The video or the post gets like, I don't know, a million views or whatever. Great. We did our like awareness campaign. And this is still a very viable tactic, and a lot of brands still utilize influencers very heavily for their awareness objectives. At the same time, influencer marketing is a proven customer acquisition tactic. So, for a lot of brands, for a lot of the clients that I've worked with, it's actually their primary customer acquisition tactic. Like, nothing works for them as well
Yes.
as this. So, for instance, they don't see similar returns from their other marketing activities, from like paid social, like other types of advertising. But influencers is something that actually generates customers for them. I think, back to your question, you asked how do we build it up? What are the steps to build an influencer program? Of course, probably everybody who has, let's say, YouTube, probably have heard about BetterHelp. Like, this is my favorite example because this brand is absolutely everywhere.
Yes.
They spend millions a month on YouTubers, podcasters, etc. Of course, you don't have to start there. Like, you can start really, really small. A lot of brand clients who approach me, they sometimes are intimidated. Like, how much do we need to spend, like
Yeah.
how big do we need to go right away. The trick is that you actually don't have to start huge right away. You can identify, as I just said, a few people who are kind of like the best fit for your brand. Those influencers, experts, maybe they're smaller, and approach them with your, let's say you have a product, you can offer them to try your product, try to establish a relationship with them. The an insight that I want to share is that with a lot of larger brands, they actually don't have these close relationships and connections with their influencers because they operate at such a scale. Imagine spending like 10 million a month. You probably work with 1,000 influencers a month. There's no way it is humanly possible to, connect and build a deep relationship with each influencer. It's really like a very transactional process where like you pay them, they advertise your process. However, smaller brands, they actually can they can start small. They can reach out to a few people that they truly admire, they truly want to see as their brand partners, and be candid about it. Be, like, hey, I'm a small brand, but I really admire what you do, and I would love you to try our product. So you can start really small. And then in order to capture the value of the influencer program, you want to make sure that you have a good tracking process in place. I spoke with another brand just a few weeks ago, and to me, it was so funny because like I've spent so many years in this industry, and to me, it's like so obvious that when you work with an
But it's
influencer, you need,
not for, yeah, for
yeah,
people who don't know.
you need to give them like a tracking URL or like a coupon code that you can track the sales that they generate for you, or the leads, like whatever your brand measures as, successful action, from an influencer campaign. Maybe you want to, people to like sign up for your wait list or whatever. So, but you need to have a mechanism in place to actually track those results. And I was talking to another brand. They're actually not that small. And they're like, can you tell us? They wanted to do like a consultation with me. And they're like, can you tell us what are we doing wrong? And they worked with like dozens of influencers up to this point. And I'm like, and they asked me, how do we measure our success? I'm like, okay, do you have the URLs in
Yeah.
place? No, they don't.
They did
So
not have any tracking URLs, so they didn't know
anything.
what's coming in from the influencers they're paying.
Yeah, so they basically like had the influencers talk about the product, like show the product in their content, in their videos on Instagram, on
Oh
TikTok,
my.
but there was no like, hey, go to my link in bio and, like buy or download or whatever. Nothing. And I'm like, well, maybe start there. It's funny. But yeah, basically like the key step for building a successful influencer program is to have your tracking in place. And then once you start working with those first few influencers and you start measuring your first results, you start to understand what worked, what didn't work. Maybe a certain type of persona just does not work for your brand, so you need to keep experimenting. Maybe a certain type of messaging does not work so well. Through those smaller tests, you can discover what actually works, and then
Yeah,
you
what
scale it.
converts, right?
Yeah. And then you scale it. So you can find more people like that. You already know, okay, this message was very effective. So you need to give this talking point to all your influencers, right?
Mhm.
So, of course, you need to provide the influencers with clear talking points about your product. So, this is another step that
That
some
so many
brands
people don't
miss.
think about. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. How can brands identify and select the right influencer for their niche? So I think a lot of people who are looking to work with influencers are assuming it's like the same sort of audience. And sometimes you can get adjacent audiences that actually work better. So, what is a process that you would recommend for figuring out who to work with or how to work with them, I guess?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a few tricks. So,
Okay.
first, it's a great question. It's a question that everybody always asks because basically the success of your influencer program depends on how well you choose the right people to work with. So, like, how do we choose them? First, start with basically like your most affinitive type of influencers. What it means is, I don't know, let's say you are a food brand.
Yeah.
And probably a good idea, this is super obvious, might be to start working with food creators, somebody who shows their cooking routine, somebody who is showing recipes consistently. So that's like the most obvious
Yeah.
type of influencers for your brand to start with. However, as you said, there are a lot of not so obvious solutions, adjacent categories of influencers that might work well for you. Let's say, again, with the food brand example, maybe you want to look into lifestyle influencers and they would integrate your product again as a part of their routine. And the benefit of working with those adjacent categories is that actually they are not so crowded with your competition.
Yes. Yes.
So you actually
Being
can
more
stand
unique.
out.
Yes.
Yes, as a brand, you can stand out to their audiences rather than chasing those few top food influencers and competing with other brands for their attention. They might be actually even more expensive for you than like working with somebody who's not necessarily specializing in this niche. However, I don't say that you should not work with your niche influencers. You still should. You should still find the right people in your industry. The way to approach this, actually, like as an agency, we work, I don't want to lie, but I think it's around like 10 or 15 metrics that we check for each influencer
Oh.
that we select for our clients. So it's much more than just like, oh, how
It's
many
not just
followers do they have?
followers alone.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
more interaction, I would imagine.
Yeah, and by the way, something that I love educating people about is like the follower metric is absolutely obsolete now. Like, actually, you don't need to care about followers at all because it means nothing. What you want to care about would be, let's say, the actual views, and then the engagement rate, the comment rate. You also want to see what the audience looks like. So, for instance, maybe you offer a product that specifically would resonate with a younger audience. So, you actually would want to ask the influencer to share their audience insights with you because they have on the back
Mm.
end, right? They have all the data and they can tell you, my core audience are maybe like 18-24, and this is like the 60% of all my viewers. So you would know, okay, this is my perfect audience, rather than
Yes.
working with somebody who maybe has an older audience, so doesn't work for your brand, or maybe you are a US based brand and their audience is somewhere in Europe. So again, why would you invest in this partnership if you want to reach the people that you want
Yes.
to reach?
So
So
smart. That's not even something I would have thought about, the location, like of the followers, not just the person, but the actual location of the bulk of the followers.
yeah, so we look at a lot of metrics, as I say, when we actually like evaluate each influencer partnership. We also look at what this influencer has done with other brands in the past. This one maybe is not always applicable because I know that there are some smaller influencers who maybe have never worked with other brands
Yeah.
before, and that's fine. That's good. But if you're approaching a larger influencer,
Mhm.
it's a good idea to look at what they have done with other brands in the past. And my favorite KPI to look at would be, do they have repetitive partnerships with other brands? So,
Oh, yes, because they wouldn't repeatedly repeat working with that person if they didn't find good results.
Right. If
Most of
they
the
didn't
time, not
get the
all the
return
time,
on their
but yeah.
investment, right?
Yes.
So basically by looking at okay, what are the brands and like how many posts or videos this influencer did for this other brand will give you a good idea whether, you would want to invest in working with this influencer. So yeah, definitely, when choosing the right influencer, it looks very complicated, like how do we understand who is the right person for us. But when you have all those clear metrics and
Mm.
benchmarks in place, it becomes much more easy to actually kind of narrow down your search.
Sure, sure. That makes so much sense. Really, really good information. Anytime you're doing anything with marketing, you need to be measuring your results. And I say that and I laugh, but so many people will send me DMs or an email from that, watch YouTube or listen to the podcast, and they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't realize that I could see which platform is actually giving me the best return." And you don't know that unless you consistently measure and keep track of it. So you can see, especially like with Pinterest, they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's June and my analytics are down." Well, yeah, because most of the time in the summer, people are not on Pinterest as much. Like on a big picture, there's other things to look at, but KPIs, that's so, so important. What are some common mistakes that you have seen brands make or that they've made maybe before they even come to you and they talk to you about these mistakes when they're trying to launch an influencer marketing program?
Great question. Yeah, I think not checking the audience is definitely a very common mistake. It's actually like very disappointing to see how some brands would pick wrong influencers
Mm.
and say, "Oh, influencer
And
marketing
wondering
doesn't
why it's
work."
not working. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not that
like
it's
it doesn't
not
work.
working, it's that you're not choosing the right people.
Yeah, so maybe if you're, targeting the US market, choose influencers who have US audience in the first place, and then you will see different results. But people don't even think about that, unfortunately. So, like, yeah, that's definitely one of the mistakes that I see very frequently. Another mistake, okay, maybe some people will hate me for that.
No, I love it. Anytime a guest goes, "I probably shouldn't say this," or "This is controversial," I'm like, "Bring it on. This is the place to talk about it."
Another mistake that I see is that brands approach influencers without a clear pricing structure in mind. And basically, I think the reason for this is because maybe they don't have any experience
Yeah.
working with
Yeah.
influencers. So they would be like, oh, I'll just reach out and I'll see like how much the influencer wants. And I guess I'll have to pay what they want. And again, influencers might hate me right now.
I mean, but it's
I,
the truth from the brand perspective.
yeah,
I think that's important. I really think that's important because you could get a great big influencer and pay a ton of money, but you might find two or three smaller influencers that have the exact perfect audience for you. And you could spend the same as you would on a really big influencer. So
yeah.
I
And
agree.
then, basically, I don't want it to sound too harsh,
Yeah.
but yes, as a brand marketer, as a brand owner, you have your own business objectives, you have your ROI targets,
Hmm.
and sometimes the influencer would get back to you with a rate that just does not make sense. And I'll get to this in a second.
Okay.
And it does not necessarily mean that you have to pay that rate. You can always negotiate. My take on this is I'm not trying to underpay anybody. I just want to make it fair for the brand and for the influencer. Another insight is that influencers sometimes come up with those weird rates because they actually also don't know how much to charge.
Yeah,
They
oftentimes
they
both
would
the
just like
business and the influencer have no idea.
they would give you a random number, and then as a marketer you need to have your pricing structure in mind. You need to get back to them and say, hey, I base my the compensation that I can offer you on the following criteria. Let's say your actual views, your engagement rate, your audience breakdown. Like maybe you don't want to pay an influencer who has larger international audience the same rate as the influencer who has like a good percentage of US audience, because you're only going after the US audience. So
Oh,
you can negotiate the rate with the person whose audience is not the ideal fit for you. So my point is that there is always room for negotiation. And if you're, if maybe you're already doing some influencer marketing and you're always paying what they ask for, ask yourself if you're doing the right thing, and maybe like sit down and like think through your pricing structure. As a brand, you need to have it in mind. Basically, when you are approaching an influencer, you already need to know how much you're willing to pay them, what you want from them, like what deliverables you expect. Maybe you want a whole package, like a video, a photo, a blog post, this and that.
yeah.
And you need to have a very clear payment structure in mind.
Courting.
This way you can negotiate effectively, because if they get back to you with the rate and you would be like, oh, that's too much for me, but you don't provide them with any kind of like explanation of like
Yeah.
what you
Because
can
you're
pay
pulling that
them.
number out of your budget maybe versus um tying a number to the results that they can bring you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to the KPIs, yeah, to their
Hmm.
actual performance metrics. So I think that's another common mistake that I see. And again, brands would work with a few influencers, very clearly overpay for those partnerships, and then say, oh, influencer marketing is just not ROI effective for me. Like it can be if you negotiate the rates properly.
Yeah. Oh, that's so, so good. What are the unique challenges and opportunities for TikTok influencer partnerships? Because TikTok is really like pushing influencer stuff, I feel, more than Instagram, and they do it really well too. So what are some challenges and opportunities when it comes to TikTok in particular?
Yeah, I love TikTok. It's a very unique platform.
Yeah.
Let's hope it won't be banned in the US. Let's hope they will find a way
I
to.
I I'm hopeful that they don't either because yeah.
Yeah, but for now, business as usual.
Yep. That's exactly right.
So yeah, TikTok is a very unique platform. I think there is a common misconception that TikTok is only popular among kids or like younger audience.
I'm 56.
Not,
I love being on there,
yeah,
so that's not true.
not true. Maybe if you look at like the overall numbers of like
Sure.
people on Facebook versus people on TikTok, okay,
Sure.
maybe like there's the younger audience on TikTok, but at the same time, TikTok has like thousands of creators, and their each audience, would be unique. So if you're going after a more mature audience, let's say, again, as we just discussed, you can reach out to an influencer, ask them what does your audience look like, and they can share the numbers of what their audience age is. So definitely, if you're a brand that for some reason doesn't want to work with TikTokers just because you think it's for kids,
You're missing
please,
out.
please ditch this misconception and start looking at TikTok with a little different perspective, I would say. And then so yeah, the age is something that brands. Sorry, okay, you need to cut this
That's
out. I need
okay.
to start
Don't you
again.
worry. We'll cut.
I'm glad we're not live. I lost
You're
my
good.
track of thought. The question was
What are the unique
challenges of.
challenges and
Okay.
opportunities? Yes.
Yeah, so I think definitely there's a lot of opportunity for all brands to work with TikTokers, and it just comes down to choosing the right partner. We see that TikTok can be a very strong channel for customer acquisition. Again, so those influencer recommendations on TikTok can really drive sales for your business. a few challenges is that if you're familiar with TikTok a little bit, you know how the video views can vary from video to video.
I mean, wildly.
Even like with well established creators, you know, who have like a millions
Mhm.
audience of like millions of followers, still you would see that one video maybe gets like 50,000 views, another video goes viral and gets like 3 million views. So as a brand marketer, you have a challenge. How do you, again, how do you price those influencer partnerships on TikTok? How do you base your rate on the average number of views? Well, what's the average of like 50,000 and 3 million? Is it going to be fair for you to pay this rate? Not necessarily. How do you protect yourself as a brand when you approach TikTokers?
Ooh, that's a good point.
And this is something that, you know, we do as an agency. Like we've done so much testing. We know that unfortunately, like sometimes brand content does not perform
As
as
well.
well as like the regular influencer content. There are several ways we tackle that. First, we always ask influencers to create stories, not just do like a brand promo, like, "Hey, I got this product. Let me tell you about it." No, like no, nobody wants to watch
No.
that. Start with a hook. You know, make sure that the audience actually like sees value in this video. And sometimes, like as a brand, you actually need to help the influencer navigate this as well. Because influencers, they might be very like responsible, like, oh, I need to hit all the talking points. I want to make sure
And
the
it's
brand
not
is
as
happy.
natural. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
natural.
It's
Like it
more
looks like an
commercial. And we don't,
yeah, like
that's what an influencer can do for you that's different than commercials, is that it's supposed to be more authentic, more real. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
So if you're a brand and you're trying to work with TikTokers, maybe even have like a phone call with them where you kind of like set those expectations and tell them, hey, I don't want like an ad. I want you to create something fun, cool, engaging. I don't know, depending
Be
on the brand, of
creative. Let
course.
them be
Yeah.
creative too. I think that's a point that we want to touch on. Sometimes
Yeah.
brands come with so many restrictions or points that they need that it doesn't come across as more authentic because we're, as a brand, we're not allowing them to be creative and do something unique.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, you know, to address the challenge of the algorithm, try to make this influencer video look less like an ad and more like something, you know, unique, creative, fun, engaging. And another way to think about, you know, the efficiency of your campaign, again, comes down to pricing. So like, how much are you willing to pay? Maybe you can negotiate some a compensation model with the influencer that would be tied to performance, so that you don't have to commit to paying like the full price for the million view video, because your video actually might perform much worse, but you might pay them for the actual views that they got. Or maybe you want to negotiate an affiliate deal with them where, you know, their compensation would be tied to the sales that they drive for you. So there are a lot of ways that you can, as a brand, kind of be creative when it comes to compensation as well, and again, kind of think about your bottom line and your ROI.
Didn't even know that you could pay an influencer on results versus creating the content. That's wild. So let's dive in. Let's say we're a brand, or I am a brand, but let's say we're a brand and we want to dip our toe into an influencer marketing situation. You could go and watch 18,000, videos on YouTube and TikTok and everywhere else on like how to do that and how to negotiate and how to do all that stuff. Or they could hire an agency like you. So tell me, besides the learning curve, right? What are some positive reasons to work with an agency like yourself?
That's a great question. I know I'm supposed to like self promote here, but I won't. I just want to be honest because I don't want like people to be disappointed. You know, a lot of people would approach an agency. It's definitely more expensive to
I
work
mean,
with an agency rather than doing it yourself. So
yes.
I don't want anybody to be disappointed here. I think working with an agency makes sense for brands who kind of really want to scale. So, you know, when
Mhm.
we're talking about you're a small business, you only want to start, you know, with like one or two influencer partners and you don't have budgets, I'd rather you do it yourself. Okay, make your own mistakes, make your learnings, that's fine. You can approach an agency, I would say, in two cases. First, when you really want to get it done right and like you have the budget for it, so like you do have the budget to invest in hiring a professional. Maybe you want to start with a few influencers, but they will be bigger influencers, so it's going to be a larger investment for you, and you want somebody who is a professional to like actually manage this relationship properly. You know, if you're going to be paying like twenty
It's a
thousand
person who wants
dollars
hands off and they're a medium-sized
yeah,
business or larger, with large budgets, and that
yeah,
wants to be able to hands off. You're going to pay for
yeah,
that. So that makes
yeah.
sense.
Maybe you want to partner with influencers where you're going to pay like 20 $30,000 per influencer right away, and you don't want to make those mistakes that we've just covered, right? You'd rather like hire a professional and get it done for you. So that's, you know, scenario number one. Another scenario would be when you tested an influencer program on your own, in-house, internally. You see some first results, you like what you're seeing, you see that okay, there is some positive traction there. How do I scale it now? And
Ah,
scaling an influencer program is actually very complicated because it's very labor intensive. You imagine, you know, talking to one person, answering all their questions about your product,
mhm.
about how do I create, you know, like this video or that video, like how do I get, you know, try your product, what do you want me to say, etc., etc. Like there's just so many steps. You also need to sign a contract with each influencer. Ideally, you need to have a contract when you work with
Yes.
influencers. So you need to like handle all the paperwork, you need to handle all the payments, all the communications with it, which influencer. You want to make sure that they adhere to the FTC
Yes.
endorsement guidelines, etc. Like it's a lot that comes in just one, managing just one influencer relationship. And again, when it's one or two people, maybe you can handle it internally. When you realize that you need to work with 20, 30, 100 influencers a month, well, you need either to build a really big internal team or you just outsource it to somebody who can kind of scale it more effectively for you. The way that agencies can scale it more effectively, we work with so many clients.
Yeah,
We
you
have a
already have
team.
like lists and people that will pop up in your head as you're talking to a client, I'm sure.
We have all the processes already set up.
Mhm.
Everything is in place.
Contracts,
Like
all the
you don't
things.
need to like build your own processes and build your own team. You can just hire somebody who will get it done for you and like manage all those dozens or hundreds of influencer relations for you. And yeah, as I say, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of labor that goes into managing those relationships. So I think either you're just getting started and you want it done right, then you would probably want to hire a professional, or you want to scale it, then yes, you definitely need some
Perfect.
help.
Perfect. And then let's say we're a brand that wants to try it and dip our toe in. Are there some sort of guidelines that you can recommend? Or, I mean, I always say whenever money changes hands, you need a contract. Like that's just a good sort of rule of thumb. But like, so let's say we identify one or two people that we feel would their audience would be really good for us. What would you recommend in terms of how to approach that person, how to ask them, I mean, how to assess budget? Like we would have no clue about all that stuff. What would you recommend someone do on that?
Yeah, so as you find those people who are, you know, you're potentially interested in working with, reach out. It has to be a very concise message. Like, don't write 3 pages, kind of, you know, an
That is
email that
so
nobody would.
true. I'm so glad you just said that because sometimes I get like 8 pages of an email, and at the end I'm like, and what am I supposed to do with this now? Again, like, am I supposed to like, yeah, I agree.
It has to be honestly like 3 to 5 sentences.
Yes.
Hey, we're a brand. This is our product. We love you. We want to work with you. Get back to us and we can discuss the details.
Perfect.
Most frequently, they would get back to you and ask, like, what is your budget? Or, like, do you offer a paid
Mhm.
partnership? Because they want to make sure that they don't waste your time.
Or there's, yes, yes.
Yeah, a lot of influencers are not interested in promoting your product just, you know,
They're
for
not
gifting.
influencers just to make money influencing. It has to fit within what they talk about, what they share, or
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense and it will feel very commercial like to their audience. So they're not going to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so once they get back to you, if they're interested, if they feel like the product is the right fit, then you can discuss the budget. As I said, you need to have a very clear kind of idea in mind. Like, what do you want from this influencer? You want them to do a video, you want them to place your URL in their, profile bio on Instagram or TikTok. You want them to share your URL in their stories, etc., etc. Like, there's so many types of content that they can create for you. So you need to have this clear vision in mind. Like, what is your goal? What do you want them to do? And based on that, you can come up with a rate that you consider to be fair for your brand and just like offer them the rate. As I say, you can also add the affiliate type of compensation to your offer. So you can say, hey, I'm willing to pay you a flat rate as like a minimum compensation for your efforts, but I also want to reward you for bringing sales to me so we can start this affiliate type of
With
partnership.
a certain link that is
Yeah.
specifically for that person. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, you need to have your offer in mind. Sometimes, they would say no or they would ask for more, and that's fine. It's a very common process to negotiate the compensation. Something also, the brands need to keep in mind, do you want to have usage rights for their content or no? So let's say they're creating a video for you or they're creating like some photography that they're going to post on their Instagram. Do you want to have the right to repurpose that video on your other channel? If yes, that needs to be covered in your agreement with this influencer. So you
Yes.
need to discuss all those deliverables, not just what they need to do, but like what you also want to do with their content. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, I know, exactly. Well, before we get to the gift that you're giving, because I was shocked at how generous that was. I want you to tell a little bit about, and you did a little bit before, but share with our audience about what services you offer. So if I have influencers, and I have a couple that had DM'd me at one point to my podcast. So if you're an influencer or you're a brand that's ready to scale, or you want to do something the correct way, as we talked about before, what does your agency do? How does your
Yeah.
service work?
So we typically work with brands who want to like fully outsource their influencer programs to us. Basically, like we provide turnkey solutions for them. Like we'll just do it all for you. We'll select the influencers. We'll navigate you on the pricing, on the budget. We'll like set up all the tracking processes, etc. However, I recognize that maybe there are some brands who are not ready to invest, in a full program and bringing on an agency. That's totally fine too. I am open to doing consultant work
That's
where,
what I was going to ask.
yeah,
Awesome.
as you said, maybe there are brands who want to get started and they don't know how. So maybe it's going to be enough just to hire a consultant for like an hour or two. Come prepared with your list of questions like
Yes.
how do I budget those influencer deals? How do I, set up all my
What
processes,
rate are you
etc.
thinking that I should charge with XYZ that I
Exactly.
want results of? Yes.
These are the most common questions,
Hmm.
and the thing is that typically we work out the answers individually. I can't give you a cookie cutter
No, of course
answer
not.
like
Yeah.
how much you need to pay to this influencer. But for each brand, based on their objectives, based on their, the scale of the brand, the type of influencers that they're gonna work with, the platform, whether it's gonna be YouTube or TikTok, there will be different compensation models. So maybe it would be a good idea to talk to me, as a consultant and have me talk to you for 2 hours and answer all your questions based on your specific brand situation and your needs.
And
So
goals.
this is
Yes.
yeah, this is something that I'm very open to doing. I don't know if you want me to bring this up already, but we agreed that to anybody who heard
This
me,
is her gift, by the way. I'm very excited. Go ahead.
yeah, to everybody who heard me speaking here on the podcast, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name, luckily, is quite unique, so it's gonna be,
I have all the links in the podcast, so you won't have
yeah,
any issues.
yeah. You can just click the link in the description, find me on LinkedIn, reach out to me. I'm very responsive. Tell me you heard me speaking on Jen's podcast and you're interested in having a consultation with me. It's going to be a 1 hour session. It's going to be completely free. At the end of the day, I'm here to share my knowledge. I don't want to like gatekeep everything that I've learned, over a decade of my work. I'm open to educate other marketers. And, if you feel like, oh, it's a good fit and I love talking to Yuliya, maybe, you would want to work with my agency. Up to you.
Exactly. Exactly. I think that is so generous to offer that. And I'm really excited. So I'm going to say to my whole audience, if you really want her advice and you're considering maybe working with her agency or working with her for a consultation situation, take advantage of this call, schedule this call with her, check in with her. Already, your advice was so valuable and I really appreciate it. So thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time and your valuable advice today. And if our listeners found some ideas and tips that you can implement in your business, I would love to get a review on the podcast. That's the lifeblood of the podcast. And so I'm always going to be asking for that. Now go out there and do something good for your business, like snagging this free 1 hour consultation with Yuliya on via LinkedIn, and the link will be down below. And but really identify if this is something for your business. Take some time, write out the information. What are you looking to do? What are your business goals? And have all of that information before you talk with her. Thank you so much.
Thank you.